New for this year is a gearbox designed specifically for FRC. Allows multiple different motors to be attached to it and gives you a simple, easy to assemble gear train. First part is going to be to assemble your motors. Putting 3 nylon washers on the end of the shaft as your spacers. Next, you'll need a 2mm key. That'll be assembled in the key slot of the motor. Next, you'll come to the gear that's going to go on the motor. You'll see in your instructions that there's an assembly alert that says that this set screw is too long and will bind inside your gearbox. You need to remove that. Next, you'll want to slide this gear onto the motor with the gear portion towards the motor. Then you want to take a 10/32 by 1/8 Allen screw as per the assembly alert. Put a dab of Loctite on it. Grab your 3/32 Allen wrench and carefully put that into your gear. Next, you're going to grab this little spring retainer. Okay? Place the retainer on the end of the shaft. A socket, 7/16 3/8 drive, works pretty well for aligning to tap it on there with. Next, you're going to want to assemble your motors to your cover plate. Set your cover plate on over your motor. Grab your screws, apply Loctite to the thread. Start your screw and grab your 5/32 Allen wrench. Snug that up. Once that's snug, install your other screw here. Then take your other motor and install it through this hole in the same manner. Now both motors are attached to the cover plate. We're going to take this bearing, install it up into this hole. Going to set this on down. Grab this shaft with this washer, noting that there is a step in this shaft. Slide that washer up over that step. Install it into the bearing. And next, take the larger gear, slide it over the shaft, meshing into your motor gears. Your small pinion. One thing to note on this is you have a raised collar on one side of this gear. That's to ride against your bearing race later on. Make sure that's facing outward. Slide that on over. Next, we're going to go to your other shaft. Grab your shaft. Same thing on this gear. You have a raised collar. Have that facing the output side. Slide it over your hex. Slide your flat washer, your bronze bushing, your bearing. Take that assembly, tip this up, and slide this right into here. Slide your box cover over. And there we go. Now we got to install the screws. Installing the last screw. Once that one's in, then we'll go ahead and tighten them all up. Next, we want to install our chain sprocket. It's going to involve a specially made collar. You can slide it on over your shaft. Take your shaft key. Take your sprocket. Slide it all the way up. Grab your washer and your screw. You want to put Loctite on this screw. Grab the Loctite. Take your 8mm wrench. Snug that up. Next part you're going to want to do is put your base plate on. Just the plate in place. And now the gearbox assembly is complete. And there are no parts left over. And we're ready to move on to the next portion.
Our first step to build the drive system is take the wheel. We're going to take these hubs and put them on each side. The wheels, you'll need to press in a bearing, which we've already done here. Once we have the hub in there, we're going to take a pair of screws with our sprocket. We'll use these for an alignment. Put them in the holes, get it aligned, and then start driving them in with the Allen wrench. And then voila, one completed drive wheel. All right, we're going to put the wheel aside for now, and then now we're going to focus on building the chassis. The chassis, you can make a long chassis or a wide chassis. What we're going to do is one that is actually long and then fairly narrow. So we'll take the end pieces, put them in the chassis frame. Everything is pre-drilled, and you can refer to the manual for the exact instructions on building the chassis frame. And so now we're putting in the last of the 24 screws that hold our wheel assembly together. And again, here it is, the completed device. Each one secured by a number of screws with a bolt on them. But we've got a great solid frame here. You have the option of making a wide robot. We're going to make a narrow robot. So from the original piece that came in the kit, we made it a little smaller. This is now the front of our robot. We'll go ahead and line it up with our wheelbases here. Line up the back of the robot. Do that screw dance thing again. We've got 72 screws in our frame right now. We'll flip it on over and then bring in our gearboxes. In the center of the frame, there's one hole that's offset. That's going to mark our center, and our transmission gearbox is going to be centered right above that offset hole. What we're going to do is put the screws in, mount it up, break away, and come back with our gearboxes mounted. When we have the gearboxes, you don't want to tighten up the screws too much so that we can adjust them back and forth, and we'll use that as a chain tensioner. Across the top of the gearbox, there's a plate. You want to make sure that you cut it so that you're left with a nice symmetric piece that gets laid right over the top of the gearbox and screwed on in. And now the last step is to tighten up the chain. So just pull back on it and then use our screws to get the chain nice and tight. We've added this year's electronics, laid things out so that it's easy to get to for troubleshooting. At this stage, the 2005 chassis is ready to roll, and it's time for some accessorizing.